Hey, Matt Green here, and I wanted to share with you what you need to do once you have a deal that you found and you're interested in putting it under contract so that you can purchase the deal. And this is a really crucial step because this is where you can lose the seller if you don't put the right pieces of information together to lock the deal up. That's your next step once you have the deal, is you want to lock it up. And I've been able to build and scale a company to over $80 million of multifamily real estate assets, and that's why I want to share with you how I've been able to do it successfully so that you can implement it into your business and create it just as successful as what I've been able to do. And when you have a seller that is interested in selling the property and you've put a offer together and it was accepted and you're just putting the terms together with the seller, what you have to do is put a letter of intent together. And when you put a letter of intent together, this is something that's going to go over some of the general terms of what the contract is going to look like when you set up the contract and put everything together so that the seller can sign it and you're officially under contract. So the letter of intent is really crucial. You have to outline the seller's name at the top of it, and you have to put your offering price in there. You also have to put in what your due diligence terms and timelines are, what type of reports you're going to be looking at under due diligence, and you're looking at title and maybe some environmental reports. Anything that you need to review to feel comfortable purchasing the property is probably historical financials and rent rolls and all that information, which you would have probably already have looked at a little bit before putting in this offer, because you had to put the numbers together to structure the deal and figure out the pricing. So then the next thing you'd put on there is when they have to sign the letter of intent for. So there's a lot of different components that have to be put together within this letter of intent, but you have to structure it correctly so that everybody is happy with it and everyone is in agreement. So once people agree on the letter of intent and you sell it and the seller signs it, so you both sign it, not sell it. Once you both sign it, you're going to start putting the contract together, whether it's you for the seller, or in some cases the sellers also like to put the contract together. So you have to ask the question and see if the seller wants to put it together or if you're going to put it together. And once you do that and sign this letter of intent, you can put the full contract together with your attorneys, and then you're going to, after you put the initial copy together, you'll send it to the seller, or the seller will send it to you. Then it's going to go into review with the two attorneys. So they're going to go back and forth and go through comments and really refine the contract to make sure it meets the obligations of both parties, and you compromise on some of the changes that both of the sides agree on, because somebody's going to have changes. Typically the attorneys always want to change things with the contracts, so you're just going to have to review them together and go back and forth a couple rounds until you finalize the contract. And once it's fully executed, you've locked the deal in and you're under contract. So your next step is really to start your due diligence. And typically, going back a little bit to this letter of intent, you have to outline your timeline for due diligence. And this is actually a really good selling point when you put this number of days that you're going to perform your due diligence in. For example, if you put in 60 days or 30 days, those are two drastic differences in time. And the shorter the number of days for due diligence that you provide, the more appealing that your offer is going to be. So you have to keep in mind, it's not always about the price when you're submitting an offer to a seller. You have to think about the terms. The terms make a huge difference. So you can really refine the terms and make them competitive by offering shorter timelines. You can offer shorter timelines for closing, because after your due diligence, you're going to have a timeline for closing. So you can shorten that timeline or make it tighter if it's possible, depending on if you're financing the deal through a bank or paying in cash. That's another alternative and another component of the letter of intent that can persuade the seller to go with you if you have very minimal contingencies and things that you have to clear before you can close. The person that has the least number of contingencies and the lowest number of barriers to entry to closing is going to win the deal. So you have to keep all these components in mind. But once you have everything together and everything is in a really good place, then you're going to have a lot of success. And it's always Number one is the price of the property, and number two is the terms. Those are the two things you can compete with. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is your earnest money deposit, because that's always another piece to the puzzle that goes into your letter of intent and your offer. Typically, 1% is a good rule of thumb for the down deposit that you want to put down on the property when you put the property under contract. And then you can also put a percentage of it to be hard money that is non-refundable, or you can set it as an earnest money deposit. And from what I've found, submitting offers and deals on, submitting offers on different projects, I found that depending on how competitive the deal is, there may be hard money that you have to put down up front, which is non-refundable money. But if a deal isn't crazy competitive, which is really hard to come by these days investing in real estate, then you can typically get away with an earnest money deposit that is refundable if you find something, or you're not able to finance the property, or something came up where you can't close the transaction. So there's a lot of different pieces to putting a deal under contract. These are the main three components. And now that you've got this deal, you have to go through and follow through and put the LOI together, make competitive terms, give a good price, and lock the deal in so you can purchase it and multiply your money.